All right, thank you, Mr. President of DADA. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest speakers, our panelists who are here, members of DADA, and those who have joined us as guests, and those who will be listening to us on the various social media platforms. We want to especially welcome you to yet another one of our bi-weekly conferences that are aimed at informing, enlightening, and mobilizing Afrikaans people and the world to a vision that we are beginning to back using baby steps. My responsibility is to, within the next 5 minutes, give you an elevator pitch of what DADA is all about. So, name DADA is Diaspora Action for Diaspora Action on Democracy in Africa. So that's what DADA really means. I would go straight to our purpose. We have a clear purpose in mind in building this organization. So on the long term into the future, we want to see the progressive reigniting of African civilization. Africa has been the bastion of human existence, and not just human existence, of course, all science points to the fact that Africa is the origin of humanity. But also Africa, beyond being the origin of humanity, is the foundation that has had to practical knowledge today to human civilization. So the civilization in Babylon is purely an Black African civilization. The civilization in Egypt is purely a Black African civilization. The civilizations that preceded the biblical Diluvian era was actually a Black civilization, from what we have also learned. So if human race is Black, the emergence of even the whole idea of racism from our point of view is clearly a recent concept. And it's evident in history that it's clearly a very recent concept. And we never had any opportunity to deal with, and I did another meeting. I'll call you immediately after. Sorry, sorry, somebody into my phone, and I want to put off the phone at this point. So that's one thing. We want to reignite that civilization. And in the Western civilization that started from Greek, all of them who are today Greek philosophers will base a lot of their foundation in terms of learning from Egypt. And of course, you know, the Babylonian civilization is to the Persian, Medo-Persian civilization that led into Greek. All of these are Black civilization. But again, when I read, I romanticize the idea of Europe coming to Africa and what they saw in terms of organized and civilized systems. That they went back and say there are interesting societies that are relatively modern. We know the Benin Empire, for instance, and how modern relative to Europe when they compare side by side with European city-states compared to the empire that was emerging in the Benin Empire, even close by in Nigeria here, and of course all the other empires that we look at. So for us, we want to do two things: reignite that African civilization and begin to advance the modernization of African society are two basic purposes that we want to pursue. To pursue these two purposes, we have defined for ourselves a couple of goals. And these are, one, we are looking at Pan-African citizenship. One of the things that have weakened Africa is the intrusion of colonial divisions. Has removed that Africanness that we have, that Ubuntu spirit that we read in our literature, in the literatures of great African poets, writers, and so on, Chinua Achebe, Ukungi Watunga, and all of that, that showed Africa for what it is, a people of civilized values and born. So let's go back and look for a Pan-African citizenship that is responsive to our new globalizing world. That's one of the goals that will advance us forward. We're also looking at to nurture a pro-African democratic leadership. Leadership is one of the biggest bane. Of course, leadership flows somehow from citizenship. If you do not have patriotic, loyal, determined, and committed citizens, you will generally throw up leaders that are also a mismatch. So our leadership experience is a consequence of our citizenship reality. So we need to begin to look at a pro-African democratic leadership in the way we look at long term. And of course, we want to foster the idea of democratic development, and then of course, good governance. And the fifth one of all of this, I don't know why it got deleted here, and I'm sorry about that, is apart from good governance, we then want to deal with welfare. Good governance generally should lead to the welfare of citizens. So these are the 5 goals that we have put together for ourselves. And we have structured ourselves clearly to have a given structure, a board, an executive, and we have organized ourselves worldwide. Let me go down to show how that is practically put in place. So at the top of it, we have a board of trustees. And then we have the executive council that is divided into 3 departments: the corporate department, the programs department, and the divisions or the regions, the framework that manages divisions. And there are 10 divisions that we have established towards where we are going to. Those 10 divisions, in my view, are, in the way we have structured ourselves, are the Caribbean. We want to bring together the Caribbean region, where we have all the islands in the Caribbean and so on, who are dominantly colored and African people. We also want to look at the Afro-Americans. Outside the Afro-Caribbeans, we are looking at the Afro-Americans who are in the Americas, particularly in the United States of America and in somewhat Canada. We also have a region that is taking care of the whole of Europe. So we are looking at the diaspora Africans that are in Europe under that umbrella. We're looking at the Middle East and the Arab world. So what are the Africans in that space? We also want to collect them together into our mainframe. Asia and the Pacific, of course, is one region. Then, of course, when you go to the continent, the 5 regions of the continent who are in diaspora, in West Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa, and North Africa. So that's how we sort of have organized ourselves to achieve this objective, driven by this sense of purpose. And I think that that is a nutshell. We have a more comprehensive layout of all that we do in terms of the programs that we've defined for ourselves. Over 20 programs, areas around them, but those are not the issues for this. We have security sector governance, legislative sector governance, public service and civil service sector governance, judicial sector governance, all of those areas that strengthen democracy, including economic sector governance and so on, where welfare issues, concrete welfare issues are handled, are all part of programmatic areas that these organized systems are going to do. So we are inviting everybody across the world who are Africans and Africans in diaspora in all the continents to join us as we build this long-term vision. It is not a vision for 10 years. It's a lifetime vision that we intend to nurture, grow, and build upon and hand over to successive generations, but keep focused until Africa assumes its place and restore its civilization and achieves a modern society that is truly in the spirit of Ubuntu, the spirit of our Africanness. Thank you very much. I hope that I've been able to give you a strong overview of where we are going to. Mr. President, I yield the mic to you now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mia. We always appreciate your insight into how we are beginning to develop data. So thanks again. And then Kevin, I believe you're going to take over from here. Let's see what we have
yes,
next.
thank you, Mia. Thank you, Mia, for that insightful intro to DADA. And I want to also say that for those of us that haven't joined DADA, all you have to do to join DADA is to go to the DADA website, www.diasporaactionfordemocracy.org, and sign up. We encourage you to sign up as a full member. When you sign up, it's $10 per month, and what we do is what all those funds go into is to help to make sure that DADA is able to make a lot of impact in Africa. So just go to the website www.diasporaactionfordemocracy.in-africa.org, or check if you check the comment section, I posted it there on the comment section so that you can also be able to join DADA from there. I posted the direct link. So so that's that. Let's go on to our next session. Our next session is where we're going to introduce our panelists for today. I'm supposed to invite Mr. Dan. Mr. Dan Mr. Dan, are you here? Mr. Daniel.
Let me check if he's here.
I don't think he's here. But our next panelist is okay, let me just give me a few moments. Okay, I don't think Mr. Dan is here, but let me just introduce the guest speaker. Mr. Paul Ejime is a consultant to the consultant strategy to the to ECOWAS. Please, can you mute your mic? He's a consultant strategist to. Please, can you mute your mic?
Yeah, let me see here if I can mute whoever is in there.
Let me.
Okay, Mr. Paul,
our special guest, who is going to be speaking next, is he's a global affairs analyst and is a strategic communications consultant to the economic community of West African states, and going to give us an insightful discourse on the topic which is our theme today: the diaspora contribution to democratic leadership and institutions in Africa, with a special focus on Liberia. We just concluded their elections recently, with the incumbent president conceding defeat to the winner of the election. And Mr. Paul Ejime is here, and I want to specially invite him to grace us by you the mic to you, Mr. Paul Ejime. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Let me show my face again.
Okay.
Yeah, once again, it is an honor to be here. So when Dan mentioned it, I said, okay, well, there is, given the little knowledge we have over the region, first starting as a journalist, as a bureau chief, and then working at the UN with international organizations, and then following governance issues like elections, peace and security, and all that. So I say, well, let me make myself available, because information or talent or skill that is not shared is waste. And so I will leave, for those who do not, you can check the internet and find out Paul Ejime. You will find out what all the work that one has been doing. Doing it not out of, it's more or less because of the commitment. Ambassador Ajishema was saying it. It's not, one is not drawing any pay from it. Well, of course, when you have to work for international organizations, yes, you are paid. But the West Africa and Africa really is at the heart of everything that we do, Pan-Africanism, following, reading up what has happened, following the evolution of history and political history and politics and governance in our region, and also having had the privilege of going outside our continent to other continents, and then comparing it with what is happening and what drawing from the best best practices. So on Liberia, and then let me first also commend DADA, and what a name, for the effort for this, the deep sense you have of knowing that things are not working in our continent, and Africa shouldn't be where we are today, and that is because a group is as weak or as strong as its weakest member. It is because individual countries have failed to live up to expectation. So even when you gather 50 of underwhelming of countries that are underwhelming in their performance, you are not likely going to get much. You say that 100% times 0 is 0. But Africa is not zero poor in terms of, even in all aspects, be it capital or resources. And that is why the interest is there. Even they call it basket case, well, for those who think it is. But listen, those who say they are developed countries continue to focus on Africa. There is something in Africa that they are perhaps we Africans are not seeing, but they are seeing, and that is why they continue to come here, because that is where the next generation, where things will be happening. So let me talk about. I like the fact that you are delving into history about our forebears and then Pan-Africanists like Nkrumah and others. And even in Liberia, we mention people like William Tubman. If we remember the Organization of African Unity, you talked about the Casablanca and Monrovia group. They came together when they were having issues. It was actually in 1961 in Monrovia, Liberia, that under Tubman, that they all agreed. That agreement now led to the betting of the OAU in 1963. To tell you that Liberia has been at the thick of it. And stepping back, we all know the history of Liberia. We know where we are coming from after so many years, more than 300 or 400 years of slavery that ended in 1807. Liberia was the first African, what do you call it, geographical area that, or nation that got a republic in 1847. So remember, the slave trade, that is the British slave trade, because we also have the Arab slave trade, but the one that is well documented is the transatlantic slave trade. So Liberia was formed by free slaves that were in America, and they were looking for where to settle them. And then they found a virgin place. That was why they moved them to a place now today called Liberia. And that was why, after a while, there were settlers there. There were people who were or indigenous, and those who now came to join them. That is still playing up today. The issue of indigenous and settlers. We call what you call the Congo Liberians, American Liberians, and all that. It's still playing in the politics. But from after the end of abolition of slavery, and then the Liberia becoming a republic in 1847, then it evolved and got to where we are today of 2023. A lot of water has passed under the bridge. Many illustrious citizens, many firsts. I have mentioned the fact that it was there in, the Monrovia group that led to the formation of. Liberia has played its part in the formation of the African OAU that later in 2002 was now transformed into the African Union. So that is the history that we have there. In terms of election, there is this joke about Charles King in 1927 in Liberia, where the rigging of election did not start today. He said he won an election in 1927 where the number of voters were more than those who were registered. Whether it is overvoting in modern parlance. So, but that is, by the way, today, Liberia has gone through a lot. 2 civil wars that started in 1989, December, around, is it before Christmas? Yeah, that one, Charles Taylor, announced on the BBC that he was taking over, he was going to overthrow the government of Samuel Doe in Monrovia. And then went ahead, that rolled on from that 89 until 2002, that the Second War actually ended. Then Liberians now started the post-war elections. I have been fortunate to monitor not only, let me not start, let's say, not monitoring the elections, but being a war correspondent with the ECOWAS ceasefire monitoring group, ECOMOG. I was one of the journalists that was embedded in that, force in Liberia. So I saw a bit of it. And then until the first election was held in 1997, which Charles Taylor won, and then went ahead, another war broke out until, like I said, ending in 2002. And after that, Africa's first elected female president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, now won the election of 2005. And then after 2005, there was one also when 2010 or 11, and then got to I monitored that one 1997, 2005, and then 2017 when Sirleaf was also handed over to Charles Taylor, to George Weah, the footballer. And then I was also in Liberia for their, their last election. So this is the 2020. So one has an idea, little knowledge of what is happening there. But the politics is another kettle of fish. I mentioned the fact that settlers and then those who were, and those who came from America, they left Africa for America and then were returned. But they didn't return to their home where they were uprooted from. They had to settle there where it was convenient for the slavers. They said, okay, just put them there. But that has created problem in the fact that it affects the politics of Liberia today, that for a very long time, they are in the minority. This the settlers, about the percentage is not much, but they had dominated because of the exposure, education, and then their wealth and all that. They have been able to keep the settlers at bay until Doe, who was one of the settlers, then now decided to take power by force. And then in doing that, he also, apart from this division, this polarization between the settlers and the indigenes, there is also the tribal problem that Liberia has had. So when Doe was there, he was accused of, committing atrocities against other tribes, favoring his own, something that is common in Africa. And so Taylor came in. Taylor, somebody that was in jail in America suddenly found himself in Africa after undergoing training in Libya and then Cote d'Ivoire. He now came to seize power. He didn't quite do that because ECOWAS now rallied to set up what became a novel, which many regions had copied, because ECOWAS cut its teeth in conflict management and resolution in Liberia, ending the war there, and then the war that also affected neighboring country of Sierra Leone. So this is it, in a nutshell, where Liberia is coming from. And it has this problem of, ethnicity or tribalism, and then this settler and indigenous people problem. But it has covered itself in glory, thanks to the last election, where I mentioned in passing, for those who were not around, Ambassador Ajishemo, who ECOWAS, for instance, and Nigeria, Ghana. Because I moved with the troops that moved from Sierra Leone on that first voyage with Nigerian Ambe, NNS Ambe, a naval ship from Monrovia, from Freetown to Liberia. ECOWAS has been engaged. Originally, it was thought that President Babangida in Nigeria was trying to save his friend Samuel Doe, but eventually he caught on with all the 15 member states. They rallied round and then went to the UN to get the mandate to continue to end that war. I'm always telling people that, but for ECOWAS, but for ECOMOG, that's the war in Liberia and Sierra Leone, that it had killed already 250,000 people in Liberia and uprooted, displaced more than 2 million people. That war would have continued. But thanks to the commitment, the sacrifice of ECOWAS member states, particularly Ghana, Nigeria, that produce many of the ECOMOG commanders. It started with a Ghanaian commander, Arnold Queno, who led the first troop that went there, and one was fortunate to be there with them as they landed at the port of Monrovia in 1990. So this is it. Many other countries lost their citizens, sacrificed, paid the supreme price, and Nigeria alone lost almost about $6 billion in prosecuting that war. So this is the context that now the same Liberia that were, the whole region, sub-region rallied round to save, it appears will now be showing the light. But let's not be too quick to judge, because in politics, so many 24 hours is a lifetime. And I would like DADA to also be looking at it, looking at how elections are run. I have worked with the ECOWAS network of electoral commissions as the first, the pioneer consultant, advisor on communication and advocacy. So it brings the 15 member states, their electoral management bodies. So I follow that election, and I know that election have become, a source of conflict and, instability in our region, because of the fact that it is not being run the way it is run, because of the attitude, the disposition of politicians in particular, and then other stakeholders. Election is not an event, it is a process, a multi-stakeholder process that involves that if one stakeholder fails, it's going to affect the outcome of that election. That is what we are having. Leadership is, critical, is what we are lacking, both at the country level and at the regional level. So you have mentioned the what we call the economic communities, of AU. The idea was that these regional economic communities, REC, they call them, will be the engine to provide as a linchpin for development. But it hasn't happened because of the issue of governance. And I think you are on top on the spot in terms of the goals and the objectives that you have set for yourself. And I will rather advise that you don't go, you don't spread yourself too wide. You take it easy, one step at a time, baby steps. Make sure that something is accomplished as you go, that is measurable, so that you don't end up, getting yourself too congested or, overwhelmed with what the challenges that Africa has. For me, there are challenges. There are no problems, and there is no challenge that cannot be, that hasn't got any solution, if only we apply ourselves to it. So Liberia, the last election, showed the way. Thanks to, we have to give credit to the Electoral Commission, headed by a lady, Davida, Koroma. She got it right, in insisting that, making sure that things work well, and with the support of those who were working behind the scene, like Ambassador Ejime and others, making sure, telling all the stakeholders to really keep them, give them close marking to make sure that they do not derail. Because you needed to know, it's not, it might sound so well that it's like food. When the food is presented on the table, it looks palatable and, sumptuous, but something had gone into the cooking, the ingredients, and then all the firing that went in there. And that is what is happening. I know that ECOWAS, apart from just observing elections, ECOWAS also engages in what we call preventive diplomacy, engaging with all the stakeholders to make sure that things do not go out of hand. But there is so much to be done. It's still a long way to go. But for now, with the results, I think with George Weah calling his opponent, former Vice President Joe Boakai, to congratulate him, even when the result had not been released, or the official results are not out. That is what it should be. But it shows the level to which we, Africa, or West Africa, has also fallen. That people are now being commended for doing what they are supposed to do. After all, when you lose, what else? You have to congratulate the winner. But that hasn't been so, and that is why we are now trying now to play up this and congratulate and praise people who do that in our region. It shows that we are not doing it right, because that exactly is what should be. If an election is held, there should be only one winner, and then the loser or losers, particularly where you have so many candidates, they will also reach out and call. It's difficult, but the problem we have is that we don't know how to lose. So it's not only about winning. We have to talk about making sure that our politicians accept defeat when they are. I don't want to go into the problem of elections. That one is in crisis. You know, Nigeria had one. Sierra Leone also had one. But you see the result. What is happening, playing out in Sierra Leone today is the aftermath of the, that disputed election that they had in June. Coup today or shootout today, whatever tomorrow. And the same thing is replicated. So we don't want to go back to military rule. Already, you know, there are 4 countries in our region. Niger, the latest, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. They are now under dictatorships. And even 3 of them are thinking of forming a new organization or new association, which is setting back, setting back the clock. ECOWAS will now have to do a lot of, house cleaning to make sure that they get all the members, 4 of these 15 members back into the fold. This is what I have said. I've taken you through the, the sketch of the historical context, and then what could present a problem in Liberia, even with this success. It is that the issue of ethnicity or tribalism, whatever you call it, and then the fact that there is economic hardship all over the place. The world economy is not helping matters, and it's hitting hard on many African countries. And then for Liberia, COVID, they had COVID problem, they had Ebola, and then all that. And then if you add mismanagement of resources or corruption, then you know that these are baggages that will not allow for movement of country.
Please, can you see my charger? Oh, my charger is in the back.
Hello. Oh.
Okay. That's somebody who is talking about the charger. Okay, so I want to stop here so that if there are questions, we can then go through it, and then I don't want to bore you. But this is the sketch of what Liberia represents. It holds out the hope for the ECOWAS, where at a time when 4 countries are already of the region are under military rule, and where some elections have fallen short of, the transparency requirement, for them to come with this shows it's an encouragement for others. And I think that DADA should see that and, latch onto this opportunity to see whatever they can do to encourage all the other, moving forward, that elections should be seen as a process. It's not a do or die affair. After one election, there will always be another election. For instance, George Weah, if you trace his history, he lost to, Madam Salif. And then they were talking in 2005. And then the saying then was, well, he is a good footballer, but he doesn't have what it takes to govern. But the young man went, that he didn't have for education, for instance. He went back to school and then came back. He came back, oh my goodness, have I?
We can hear you.
Oh, you can? All right, yeah. So he went back to school, and when he returned, first he contested for Senate. He won, by the way, he's a senator. So he won for a senatorial position. And then later, he now had a shot on the presidency, and he won. And after one term, if the people now say that he should, he has done his term, he has done his best. Maybe his best is not good enough for a second term. He has taken it in his stride and, congratulated the man who defeated him. And that is how it should be. So I think we want more of that. Congratulations to Liberia. Congratulations to all those who assisted, whether directly or indirectly, or who were, particularly those who were working behind the scene to make sure that the elections went very well. Let me stop here and then, ask whether there will be, if I will be glad to answer any questions coming from this my talk, if I made sense. Thank you very much.
So, Dr. Paul Ejime, thank you so much for this insightful discourse. This is an eye-opener to us, and Liberia is serving as a beacon of hope to especially West Africa, at the point where we're having a lot of countries that are already going into coup d'etat. Thank you so much for this. We'll be coming. I want you to hold on, please. We'll be coming back for question and answer, but I want to hear from some other panelists that are here. So you can still be directed to you.
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you. We're having we have our other panelist, Dr. David Mastanga, who is going to be talking about this particular issue. Dr. David Mastanga is a Ugandan-born lawyer, a conflict resolution expert, a political scientist, and an international relations expert, a conflict resolution expert, and a political risk strategist. He's also a Pan-Africanist. I want to formally welcome him to take the mic. Dr. Paul Mastanga, sir. You're welcome, sir. Please, I yield the mic to you, sir.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Africans on the platform, those listening to us across the continent of Africa and the globe at large. I welcome, first of all, I thank the organizers of this conference, that this is a push towards a better Africa. This is a push that will bring Africa to our lips, our services, the doorsteps of every African. It's not only West Africa. It's not East Africa. It's not SADC. It is not North Africa, the entire Africa. Africa needs people to talk about it. And I'm very happy, one passionate African born in Uganda some 6 decades ago. I live in the United Kingdom. For 39 years, I've lived there. The difficult stories of democracy of our continent brings so many of us in the diaspora. I will not go to that topic, but I will stick to the topic as it was and as it is on the platform. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank the Professor Paul, who has said so many things. I was also a senior consultant for Sky News for the entire Africa during the Liberian War, Sierra Leone, and Cote d'Ivoire, where I, Chisano, Mbeki, and the late Kofi Annan tried so hard to see whether we could find a solution. I don't know how I missed my brother here, but I was always on these missions quietly in the technical kitchen, trying to help Chisano and Mbeki, but we did not know what Obasanjo's ideas were. We fell victims of almost going to be called traitors by other African people. But that's a story again for the other day. Today, Africa looks at itself as a continent submerged by conflicts. Today, leadership on the African continent, most of the leadership falls short of what is expected of them. But tackling this topic, I want to go in 3 approaches. Democratic leadership, institutions in Africa, democracy and elections. I might be very harsh here, and as those who think they can challenge me on this, I'm ready. But I'm going to be very harsh and candid. Very few people in Africa, very few understand what democracy, the difference between democracy and elections. Very few. Even our leaders themselves don't understand what democracy and elections are, or even what democracy is. But what is democracy? Is this a concept? These are concepts that were brought in. I will bring the narrative of a pair down to why Africa should change the course today. If we stick on the course, I know we are emphasizing the question of democracy. Which democracy are you talking about? Which one? The one in Europe or the one in America? We are on the 67 years of full independence. 67, the first country having been Ghana, where a military coup in 1965 struck and took away the first country that got independence. Nkrumah was overthrown by Achampong and others who thought were used by some international agencies to overthrow the government of Kwame Nkrumah. While down in the Central Africa, and Eastern Central Africa, and the Great Lakes region, Patrice Lumumba had disappeared, mysteriously killed, maimed, and his tooth was taken to be spared or to be put in a fridge until 2021. We have been crying for Patrice Lumumba's body. We have never got it. We only saw one tooth that was brought back. So when you talk about the concept of democratic leadership, what are these concepts? Are they foreign concepts? When before Dr. Livingstone arrived on our continent, what was the Ashanti Kingdom? What was the empire of the Benin Empire, the Oyo Empire, the Buganda Empire, Kingdom? What did we have on our continent? Have we gone back to see that some of the doctrines that were brought to us are the main cause of what we have today? Look at them. Look at the concept of religion. Look at the concept of democracy itself. Look at the concept of elections. Look at the concept of judiciary, the laws, the judiciary. the punitive measures Africans use to solve their problems by village elders, the Omofia clan that we hear about in Nigeria, in the book of Things Fall Apart by Achebe. They used to sit down and resolve their conflicts. Africans used to know who is a thief, a wizard, a witch. We used to know from the village barazas. But when these new concepts arrived on our continent, behind these new concepts, two things were working. These concepts created what we call institutions. Institutions in Africa, because this is the topic that you have said. Democratic leadership, institutions in Africa, democracy, and then case study, Liberia. I'm tackling it from the institutions that came. Do they match? Do they benefit Africans? How many Africans have benefited out of these institutions? But behind this drive, there was something very dangerous taking place. And that something was called mercantile capitalism. If you look at the link, my brother has already dealt with the concepts of post-election, or pre and post-election of Liberia, the slave trade, the slavery that took us 400 years ago, were sold. I'm not going to go indoors, but I'm looking at mercantile capitalism. Of all these concepts that were brought to us to dismantle the Ashanti Empire, to dismantle the Buganda Empire, to dismantle the Zulu Empire, to dismantle Lobungula in South Africa, to dismantle the Sultan of Sokoto, all these tough guys. What was it behind all this? There was something called mercantile capitalism, which you can look through the lens of Captain Lugard creating companies. For example, South Africa was created as a company. Nigeria was listed as a company on the stock exchange. Kenya was listed as a company on stock exchange. That's why you find companies like the East African Trading Company, the Gold Coast Trading Company. All these are there in our history. So institutions came with so many side effects that affected African lives, natives. They destroyed our Ubuntu. Sorry, the chairman has, or the president has mentioned Ubuntu. Where did our Ubuntu go? Where did the Ubuntu go? These institutions, concepts, new ones, doctrines, swallowed our Ubuntu. We became useless. And I'm going to be hard. I don't care whether you like me or you hate me, I'm not bothered. But we became useless. We became subjects. We became subjects of the new concept that came.
I think we lost him there.
Yeah, I think we did.
Let him unmute himself.
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm here.
go ahead,
The cursor just moved. Let me move it very far away.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, because the material is just flowing, is too much. When you look at these new concepts, I want people to follow my story. In your future conferences, Mr. President, I want you to look at some of this, where the problem, because at the end of my story, I am looking at where did we go wrong? Why is it that on the few countries in Africa, after 5 years, every 5 years, almost every African country, there is a dead man or a dead woman because of elections. That is where I will end. I will come to that story. But I want you to understand how the new concept of democratized Europe or Western that had 250 years, that had 1,000 years, for example, in Britain, where I live, how many people died before this democracy started? We are only 67 years. Don't forget, I have mentioned that already. But when they brought all these concepts and the doctrines behind these concepts, there was something very, very strange. And that something is called mercantile capitalism. Look at the mercantile capitalism. As we go to pray, there is a saying in Kenya that as you pray with the Bible, by the time you wake up, there is a fence on your land. And some people with horses have arrived and said, this is our land. And continue having the Bible, pray down for God to help you, but the land is gone. Now, that mercantile capitalism is the economy. It is the economy, the engine. Africa became the engine of the metros of Europe. We became the suppliers of raw materials. After being enslaved, carried as slaves to the Bahamas, to the America, carried slaves to Arab countries. Well, in Arab countries, we were thrown in the Red Sea. That's why you don't find black Arabs in Arabia. There are some countries in Africa Dr. Mastanga doesn't want to visit because of the feeling of the past. I wouldn't like to enjoy myself in Saudi Arabia because there is no black man there. And yet they were the people who came to carry all the people from my village. My name, Mastanga, comes from Ivory because I was born at the time, 60 decades ago, when Ivory was being carried through my village. And we are named Mastanga, means Ivory. So look at that. Where are the people that they carried, who carried this ivory all the way to Mombasa, to Ujiji, to Dar es Salaam, to Bagamoyo, to Zanzibar? Where did these people go? You can't find them in Arab countries, in Qatar. You can't find them in the United Arab Emirates. And we are busy. We don't even ask these questions. We can't find them in Turkey either. The Ottoman Empire was here carrying our things with the doctrine of mercantile capitalism. All of those people who came from Europe had a feeling of mercantile capitalism to introduce other religion, Islam. As you pray, you go down with your on the knees and you put your head down, the land is taken. That is for sure. And somebody says, it is mine. Cecil Rhodes comes from South Africa and says, from here up to there, I will build a road from Cape Town to Cairo. But this place is mine. He colonized, he conquered all the people, took Zimbabwe, the current Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, South Africa, parts of it, all of those. That is mercantile capitalism that came. So in these doctrines of came out what we call divide and rule, because I'm trying to find out where things went wrong and why we have not corrected them, that still today in Kenya, in Uganda, you find 200 people dead because of elections. In Zimbabwe, because of elections. In Nigeria, because of elections. Someone just even 94 million people registered to vote, 68 only. The 68 disappeared to the forest in the river states, Imo states. They sit at home. They don't go. Either they disappear or the 24 million vote. Why we end up in fighting each other after every 5 elections. All these military coups that you are talking about are coming as a result. Look at, trace them from the one of Guinea. Conde wanted to extend the constitution. The soldier came knocking on his door. Mali, the same. After elections, he did not want the opposition to talk. The soldiers came knocking on the door. Niger is the same. My friend works in ECOWAS, and I think for me, I have no good words for some of the things that some of these agencies do, but I have good words for ECOWAS at times for standing up against the bullies, and thanks, the credit goes there. But we must go back. We are not going to be standing up wasting money on arms to buy arms. We must stand up and correct what has gone wrong as Africans. And this institution, DADA, is one institution that we can speak, that some people in Europe can pick from us. Some people in America must learn that putting sanctions on a country in Africa or third world does not change government. You punish indigenous people who need the services of medicine, need the services of textbooks in schools, need the services of all roads and so on. You are not punishing Mnangagwa. Mnangagwa can buy suits, can eat. But the Zimbabweans need medicine. He can send his children for medical treatment. Why do you sanction them and ban Zimbabwe, for example, to have a dollar? All this, or to trade in a dollar, or to trade in its diamonds freely so that it can buy its food without asking you for money. So these are the things we must re-examine as Africans. So this mercantile system, they use it as a stick, or they use concepts as a stick. If you refuse them, they put you on sanctions. They continue milking. I'll give you countries where the milking is taking place. Look at Democratic Republic of Congo. Democratic Republic of Congo has 134 rebel groups. Who owns these rebel groups? Who are the owners of these rebel groups? If you look carefully, out of these 134 rebel groups, on a country in Africa, there is some external person from the metros of Europe supplying arms to these rebel groups. That is for sure. And I have evidence which I can parade it to people. I will put it here for you. I've researched extensively. Then, as they give us religion, as they tell us to have democracy, we cannot have democracy. Mr. President, I am telling you, I think you better change the word. Democracy in Africa, which one? Where? Which democracy? Which one? There are very few countries in Africa where you can talk of democracy. Honestly, you can talk of democracy in Ghana, for example. You can talk of democracy in South Africa. You can talk of democracy in Tanzania. You can talk of democracy in Kenya, although they fight after elections, but there is that sense of democracy where people write openly about the president, even insult him, but he doesn't go to arrest people and detain them. You can talk about which other country. We used to have Senegal as a flag bearer on the western coast, but it is now fallen into some form of dictatorship where the president of a country detains a younger man who has just come up to say hello. Things are not very good. So what, Mr. President, next time modify this thing, democracy. Democratic leadership, where is it? It is not there. Very few Africans understand what democracy is. Even the presidents themselves don't know what democracy is. Some of the things that we are doing right now, we're endangering the future generation of our continent. The doctrines used to be land. The doctrine used to be mineral. They take minerals, they take cotton, manufacture shirts, bring them to sell to us. Now they have come with another doctrine called carbon. Ladies and gentlemen, carbon. Every African leader going that side is going to sell carbon. Now, the question I will put, and I want people to ask me, that if you buy carbon, won't you one day come and say, what was producing the cotton? That carbon trees. So you gave me 20 million hectares without the production, the main engine that produced the carbon was land. Are we not having a problem? I leave it to the people, to the panel, and to the people to discuss what is the new concept. These are concepts. All the concepts have gone. Religion is gone, is being used. Many Africans don't see eye to eye. I will give an example of my own country. From the time of independence up to today, we have never had a Catholic leadership of our country. We have had a one good Muslim or bad Muslim called Idi Amin standing up to lead us. But most of the people, leaders in my country, have been Anglican. The Anglican religious sect, the leadership. Although the Catholics are the biggest number in our country, the Anglican Church of England has been the main steering in the leadership terms. President Museveni is an Anglican, like Dr. Mastanga, and other people. Dr. Munito Nobote was Anglican. A very few, we have not had. We had the first Prime Minister, Chiwanuka Beni Chiwanuka, Catholic, did not last few days, few months, he was removed from power. Kabaka Mutesa was Anglican. You know, he even died, the late Mutesa died in London because of the links. So this is a doctrine I'm talking about. Why countries still have, why the West African states that are under the French colony, the French domination, continue to suffer more than the English-speaking countries. Why? Is the doctrines, the concept that were brought. The French brought assimilation. They acquired wealth and took wealth and even budgeted for you how much you should eat and how much you should dress and how to dress. So they left out this concept until people like Sekou and other people, my friend, the one of Cote d'Ivoire, who tried to oppose, they didn't last long. Sankara tried to say, oh no, where are we going? It didn't last long. These are some of the concepts that were brought by all external people that came, visited our continent, beginning with Dr. Livingstone, who arrived here, found our kingdoms. Therefore, the question I pose here, as I finish one part of my first part, which is a background to this question of democratic leadership. Is there any democratic leadership in Africa? There are few, but the rest of Africa has fallen into hands of greedy people who will not give up, who will steal elections. And if you talk, you fight. Also, the rest of Africa has fallen into opposition groups that don't concede or don't accept that we have been defeated until Liberia showed us the answer. If you look at most of the presidents, some of the presidents, I will use my own president. I don't think His Excellency President Museveni has ever, is my friend. We shook hands and we finished any business of looking for each other or fighting each other. So it is, I said, have your Uganda until if things go the way you want. He has never written a speech of conceding. Equally, our opposition leader, Mr. Besigye, has never written a speech to concede. Never, never. That's why we see in Uganda, every elections, there are 200 people dead, 50 dead, 5 dead, even if it is one human being dead. That's bad enough for Africa. So elections in Africa, do they bring any credibility to the leadership? The answer is no. We are very far from holding a free and a fair election, apart from South Africa, Tanzania. The rest of the elections in Africa are mad, and now Liberia, and to some serious extent, Ghana. But I'm now going to tell you what makes these problems, what creates a problem. If you look at 3/4 of the African countries, they have very bad constitutions. They have a constitution of 50+1, Mr. President. 50+1. Where did you manufacture this? Where did you manufacture this 50+1? That always creates a problem for people in areas where there is ethnicity. Paul touched about ethnic imbalances in Liberia. Clean this 50+1 if you want to avoid conflicts. Win by simple majority. We have just copied the constitutions of United States, brought it here, where there is sausage, meat. If you remove sausage from the windows of United States and the beef from British windows, people will go on strike. Some people go hungry, but when they walk around window shopping, they fill their stomachs. I live in these metros of Europe, in London. You find elders walking on the streets looking at things, but they're not buying. But if you ask him whether he has money in the pocket, he says, I'm waiting for my check. Because there is a social security system. In Africa, we don't have it. Therefore, we have a long way to go to bring a 50+1 system. Paul and Mr. President and the DADA management, look at this 50+1. I want to enumerate to you countries that have gone to chaos because of 50+1. Zimbabwe, Uganda, Kenya, Malawi. Yes, Malawi, 50+1. Mozambique. You see, up to now, some people still arguing of elections in Maputo. 50+1. So this 50+1, the only country that does 50+1 very well is Ghana. Mahama said, bye-bye, thank you. You have defeated me. But still went to court. So there is one thing I want to question and leave the audience to answer me later. Why do you hold an election of 62 million, of let's say 30 million voters, then allow a court of 7 judges or 5 judges to decide the fate like in America? We have just copied American Constitution. It brings us chaos. I want to give a firm foundation to my reasoning and argument that in Tanzania, for example, you can complain about everything as a member of parliament. Yes, if somebody beat you in your constituency, you can go to the lower court. But the presidency in Tanzania is not is not contested after election. The president in Tanzania wins by simple majority. That's why you see stability, because, Mr. President, we are addressing causes that cause us insecurity, conflicts on this continent. That is one of the causes. This 50+1, and then you go to the judges. Judges are selected by the same president. You tell me the judges of Nigeria, for example. Is there any judge in Nigeria who would have said Tinubu should leave? Yes. Some of you Africans, I'm 68 years old, going home. If you want to kill me, you kill me. Or if you don't want me to talk, I don't talk. But I want God to ask me, what did you do? And I will tell him I tried to tell Africans the truth. The judges in Nigeria are selected by Mr. Tinubu or Mr. Buhari. Will they judge against Buhari? So why do you take your after you are voting, universal suffrage, you have voted very well, then you go before a bench of men recruited who can be paid money in Paris, paid money in London, and they make a judgment in favor of the incumbent? I leave that question hanging there for you. Then we come to one big problem. As I summarize coming down, my brother Paul has given the history of Liberia. Indeed, democracy in Liberia went downwards, down under, but it came back because the society in Liberia seemed to be more vibrant and more resilient to criticisms of both the opposition and the ruling party. There is some sense of civility that has grown in Liberia. And that sense of civility gives us hope in Africa that one day, there will rise countries in Africa that will act like Liberia. There will rise human beings that will act like Liberia. But let's come to what has not helped Africa. What has not helped democratic leadership. We have an organization called African Union. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to announce to you here the death of African Union Commission. It has been captured. I personally, Dr. Mastanga, I have written letters. Paul, you must have come across my letter. And I handed it over to every president on the continent of Africa and told every president in the continent of Africa that you must censor. You must censor. You must censor the chairperson. He is incompetent by our charter and the rules of procedure 41. He has failed Africa. He's very good at taking photographs in big conferences and taking so many things that I cannot name here because of time. But African Union, with all this that we have, the background I've given you, we had hope that the Monrovia group and the Casablanca group would come together and unite and form one unit that will speak on behalf of Africa. Today, in Africa, we speak from every part of the body. If you look at my presidents of African countries going for summits, all of them come out. Someone says he has got $1 billion. Another one says I've got 6 billion. Another one says I've got 0. We don't have unity. And this is how this doctrine goes back to divide and rule. They have divided us in concepts of Anglo-African and Francophone Africa. If you go to the AU, there are battles everywhere. African Parliament. A Francophone unites with ECOWAS. If they want a candidate, they will pass. The Anglophone stick with SADC and say, no, we don't want this. So this African Union would deliver democratic leadership if they were revamped, if it was revamped, such that once it is revamped and put on the working ethos of today, African Union would help us. But the African Union is moribund in terms of the same institutions, the same methods, the same peacekeeping force, which does not exist. It only worked in Somalia, but you find the soldiers are not even paid up to now. Paul talked about corruption. It is highest around there. If you find Ejime soldiers in Somalia, some of them can turn guns against people because they are not paid. So we have a huge number of difficulties, ladies and gentlemen, on our continent. But African Union has not helped us at all. For example, if you look at all the protocols.
Yeah, Doctor, excuse me, Doctor, we'll probably be rounding up, please. We will.
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I am coming because you can see even from my tone, sir. If you look at all institutions that are in African Union, from the African Court of Justice, Malabo Protocol, Maputo Protocol, Abuja Protocol, Kigali Protocol of Trade. How many countries have signed up? So to get democracy and democratic institutions and the leadership, to have people who will say, I've lost elections and I'm going home. I've lost this election. To have people like President Ware of Liberia. It's going to take us a long time to have such people on the continent. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, for me, on behalf of myself and on behalf of Pan-African Forum, if you want to read what I write, you can take this address, www.panafricanforumltd.com. Everything has been there for years. I put all my writings, my open documents, my journals, everything is on that platform. I am not an NGO funded by anybody. I fund myself as a parent whose children are grown already, some of them dishing £1,000, $1,000. I run around the world, I run around Africa. As I speak right now, I'm not in my place. I am looking for peace to make sure that the Sudan generals go back to table. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the match. How we can get a Liberia working somewhere in Africa, like in DRC Congo, where Tshisekedi, if he doesn't win, says, thank you very much. Whoever has won, come and take over. It will take us a long time. But those are some of the reasons, some of the things that brought us to where we are. I stand for any questions. If there are any explanations, if you want, I will do so. Thank you very much. Thank you for calling me to this conference.
Thank you so much, sir, for that insightful discourse. If there's anything we've learned, we realize, me personally, I've learned that what you said, the Constitution is very important in whatever we are doing in in African countries. If the constitution is not strong enough, then a lot of things we are doing will definitely crumble. I don't know if we have, before we go to questions, please, I'll give you indulgence to just please hang on and wait while we wait for our third panelist. I don't know if our third panelist is here. Dr. Cholo Brooks, is he here?
I've been trying to, probably he logged in as with a different login information, but I've not been able to identify him.
Dr. Chua, okay, I don't think he's here. I think that will make us to go to, in the meantime, go to the other items, which is the Q&A session, so that Dr. Mastanga and Dr. Ejime can respond to questions out there. So if you have any questions out there, you can just raise up your hands. Meanwhile, we've had some questions in the chat box. We actually are going to take some questions, just 5 hands from those who raised their hands, and then 5 questions from those ones that were posted out there on the chat. Okay, if I see, let me go back to one of the questions that was asked I think that was asked by Mr. Okay, this one was asked by Mr. Wangpam. Mr. Wangpam has this particular question. He said, do Africans in the diaspora have any sense of pride in their African identity? Yes or no? And if so, how has that reflected in their acceptance and participation in Pan-African organizations? I don't know if any one of you, Dr. Ejime, can you talk about this? He said, do Africans in the diaspora have any sense of pride in their African identity? Yes or no? If so, how is that? Okay, you got it, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that question should have gone to DADA, that you are. But what I will say, I will give a general view about what I think it should be doing. It should have Pan-African identity, because even those what is it called, brothers and sisters, cousins that they took to the Americas, and then the plantation everywhere in America, they are still relating with Africa today. So why would people in the diaspora not have that kind of feeling? But it also depends on what Mother Africa does. A lot of it, is a collective responsibility, I must say. But Mother Africa has to show itself to be attractive, to be welcoming, to show the reason why people must identify with it. Because if you don't say you are, nobody will say thou art. I have seen situations where some African Americans, those who in America, they tell you that your parents, they don't have anything to do with you because it was your chiefs or your grandparents or that sold us, that sold my parents. I mean, and that is, it amounts to self-defeatism, because they did not, I take it that they do not appreciate, they do not understand what it is. Because history is one you are listening to, and that was why I went into history of Liberia, to give us a context before we begin to talk about every other. The same thing can apply to, if you look at every other African country, we all have history. We need to know that history. If you don't know your history, you won't know, because you know where you're coming from, where you are, to be able to know where you are going. Okay, but most of us, they do not. For instance, in Liberia, if you ask some of the young men who did not participate in the war, in those bloody civil war, the way they perceive their life is different, because they did not experience it, and they are not willing to also learn. So what I will say is that it is not a case of anybody blaming. There shouldn't be any blame game or people in diaspora blaming those in motherland, or motherland saying those the other people are, you have gone, and that is the end. There has to be that sense of affinity. We have to connect. You see people in the diaspora now today transferring funds for the survival of those at home in Mother Africa. Mastanga is there, Dr. Mastanga. I know he has, even though he's in London, he will be thinking about those in the villages, because life is tough there. The governments at home are not, they haven't done their job. There is no governance, bad governance. It means that the benefits of governance, or I don't want to call it whether democracy or whatever system of government you are running, the bottom line is that you provide for the welfare of the people, peace and security, and then give the basics, education, social amenities, good roads, food on the table. You develop agriculture, create the enabling environment for them to do their job. Nobody wants any government to come and do anything. The man in the farm, in the village in Uganda or in Nigeria, they are not interested in anybody who is in Abuja, because that is not, it's so far from them. Those people, the city dwellers, are doing their own thing. So I will say that they should be, those in the diaspora should have that Pan-African, fire burning in them to remember home. But how would they do that if home is not attractive? If home, you cannot even travel home because of insecurity. If those at home have made it ungovernable, and then you can't leave. Many people, for me, some people are in the, for instance, Dr. Mastanga is in the cold in London now. It's snowing. But we are from the tropics. We are climate, we have the sun every day. But imagine somebody now going to be covering up every day, of your life. This is what, of course, you can visit and then go back. But what has happened in Nigeria, I hope you know what they call Japa. People are now living, it's not only Nigeria, it's everywhere. In Zimbabwe, Uganda, they want to run away from, in fact, they are dying on the roads. Youths are dying in the Mediterranean and then on the Sahara Desert, the desert, trying to cross to go to where they think there is a greener pasture. Why? Because home, in fact, after trying once, 2 times, they tell you they still want to go because they are already at home, they are dead. So if it doesn't matter to them if they die in the sea or on the desert. And that shouldn't be the case, because Africa is blessed. We have all that it takes. So for Christ's sake, I know things are not working well because of all the challenges that we have talked about, but we shouldn't give up hope. It's unfortunate that those who succeeded our independent leaders, like Nkrumah and others, those in the African Union now, if they were the ones in charge, I can bet you that many African countries will not be independent the way they are going, because they have lost it. They have lost, there is the compass. They have missed the way. And it is for a number of reasons. Foreign influence is there. For instance, how the recruitment process of those who are now governing, who are in charge in AU or ECOWAS, has been, is determined by, outsiders, outside influence. But we do not have to blame them. We have to blame ourselves for allowing that. And let me quickly go to the issue where Dr. Mastanga is talking about, 50+1, and then judiciary. And it links to one question. If you were reading, you will notice that former President Olusegun Obasanjo, few days ago, was saying that democracy has failed Africa. But my view is that it is not about nomenclature. It's not about a system of government, what you call it. It is the fact that we have failed. If we don't like the Western type democracy, or what you call mercantile democracy, let us fashion our own. Who has, is it imposed on us? There has never been any imposition. Why can't we fashion what works for us? If we don't like what we have. But because some people are benefiting from what is going on, they are using it to now put others, under poverty. They have weaponized poverty. They are enjoying it. A few people are benefiting from it. That is why they are keeping others down. Because they can travel with their families, with their wives and children. They can use the resource, commonwealth of each of these countries. In fact, they have houses, they have homes abroad that they will, when things are not going well, they run there. But woe betide them, because very soon there will be no place to run to. And that is why organizations like DADA, we have to come, there has to be that connect, shake hands with those at home to make sure that Africa becomes what it ought to be. Today, Africa is not, many African countries are not what they should be. Given the amount of resources that is there. Look at Niger. Of course, nobody is advocating military takeover. But what you have found in the former French colonies is that there is a groundswell of anti-French sentiment happening. But the ordinary citizens on their own cannot do it, because the rent collectors, the students that the French have planted there, will come out and shoot and mow them down when they protest. And that is why because of the constitutional coups, ballot coups, political coups, and all the other coups, that is what is giving rise to the military coup. Military coup is just, a symptom of a state dysfunctional system where those who cannot, because they don't have the weapons, they kill them on the streets until the military, because they have the weapon, that is when they now use that weapon to now say they have overthrown government. So what is there? Let Africa. So let me say that let the Africans, we in the diaspora should have, if they don't, they should have that Pan-African spirit or fire burning in them to remember home, because that is where everybody, forget this issue about, I tell them in America or wherever you are, if you're an African, one day, if you think that you are comfortable there, it will just take one day for somebody to come and tell you, nigger, go home. Or you will feel something that nobody will tell you in your country. It will happen to you, and then you begin to cry about racism, about injustice. It is because, you have left home. Yes, go there, do whatever business you want to do, but home is home, no matter how bad. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Okay, I think we have another question here from Madam Chiti. I think this one's even related to a question I personally had in mind. What she says, this one is actually directed to Dr. Mastanga. So it says, could you please outline specifically how African civil societies can assist in strengthening democracy on the continent? That's one. Then she also says, could you please outline specifically how the diaspora can assist in strengthening democracy on the continent? I know you actually said something about whether the democracy is in Africa, but I believe that you also mentioned some other countries that were doing well. And I believe there are ways that I can respond. So could you please respond to this, Dr. Mastanga, sir?
Thank you very much. I will be quick on that one. Civil society plays a pivotal role in rearrangement of our societies. But the civil societies that are funded by enemies. And I just want to warn DADA, as you grow, I think don't try to get money from anywhere. Try to get money from your slaves. Our slaves, from us. Ask us to give you. But the moment you ask George Soros, then you become a slave of manipulation. You will be manipulated and you will be nowhere. People in Africa will not listen to you. So civil societies help to govern, help to give advice in normal institutions like America, democracy, and European democracy like Britain, where Mr. Paul thinks I'm in the cold. Mr. Paul, I told you I'm somewhere in Africa. I'm not in the cold. I'm enjoying some bit of sunshine across in one of the cities where I'm working hard to make sure peace returns in one of the countries in Africa by having indirect democracy, indirect, discussion. You know what it means. So I'm somewhere near you. So let me tell you, civil societies help quite a lot in shaping up governance. But civil societies that are funded particularly to continue with the concepts that brought us where we are. Paul, these concepts brought us where we are. Religion brought us where we are. Most Africans in the UK, we go to Asians collect their friends and call them and give them support. But there are very few Africans in the United Kingdom, for example, where I am, who can call others and say, go and open up a small shop down there, the corner, and return my money. That's why you see our other third world countries like Asia, India is producing a prime minister in the United Kingdom. But we Africans cannot produce. We are a prime minister. We only produced Mr. Obama, who left us with one swimming pool in the whole Africa, one swimming pool and a gym which has collapsed. So look, we have a problem, my dear. So don't look for money that is coming from them. And the moment you do that, you will have a problem. That's why you see African Union cannot function, because it has no money of its own. We have brought proposals to change this African Union funding system, that every African country can contribute. It is better for the president of this organization, DADA, to ask Mastanga that your monthly or your yearly contribution is £2,000. I will send it to you. Once I have read your manifesto properly, I will contribute. I am a member of the Chatham House. I'm a member of Royal African Society. I'm a member of the International Institute of Strategic Studies. I pay these organizations and they give me service. Some of this information that you see me having, they are available to me. They send it to me as members. So why don't we also have that spirit to pay, to give you money, even if it is £500 per year, and we are 1,000 of us. We form our own formidable organization. Have nobody taking that money of the organization. I tell you, in 3-4 years, if we start now, our organization will be stronger and will have the civil apparatus to change things on the continent. The diaspora is a key element to African economic and political stability at the moment, because we have tools of analysis, we have tools of engagement, we are a bit polished. For example, I don't think the president of DADA will go and slap people in his village. No, they can insult you, but you just go home. Yeah, the people like me, if people insult me and pour what if unless you want to hurt me, I will defend myself. But for you to insult me in Africa, I say thank you very much. But you go to Nigeria, for example, and I say Tinubu in front of me, asking if you're a journalist. Cholo was a journalist. I was a journalist. I am a journalist. Up to today, I go to 10 Downing Street and ask Tony Blair, Mr. Tony Blair, you have done very wrong, and your policy is very stupid. It is not going to cause. If you use the word stupid in Africa, I think you will be carried upside down, and you will not see life again. So for us in the diaspora, we have this knowledge, exposure, surely, exposure. We have tolerance. We have learned values of tolerance. You can't climb a bus in London by hitting an old woman or a pregnant woman is standing and you are sitting. Everybody will look at you and you get ashamed. And you stand. Because that's the norm. So there you are. We play a pivotal role. So these are the values that we need to educate the continent. We take back and see. But then, as Paulo said, there are bottlenecks there. If you go too much, they will call you a wise worker. I call it a wise acre who is coming to confuse my government. Some of the presidents can even finish you. You end yourself in River Nile or Zambezi or whatever, River Benin. People don't want. So we have a problem, but civil society play a role. The second question, I don't know what you said something linked to what?
Second question was, could you please outline specifically how the diaspora can assist in strengthening democracy on the continent?
By forming groups like a DADA, we can have a voice. In fact, I'm ready to enroll as a member. We can have a voice. We could have a voice in carbon selling. For example, people are selling carbon. Are they asking you? Ladies and gentlemen, you are on this platform and you are all Africans. Are you not seeing a danger here? This new concept of carbon. People are selling carbon. 20 million hectares of carbon. Are you selling only carbon trees? But mark you, this guy one day will come and say, no, did I buy only carbon? I did not buy air. I don't see it. I bought even the land. We have a problem here. So it is you, the organization, like DADA, now to put us together and say, we must be represented in institutions like Climate COP28. We should be there. We should have 2 or 3 professors seated in there telling a different view, that this has no bearance to our constitutions. You are not even asking us how much carbon you want to sell. And what are the consequences of selling this carbon, for example, to the international community? Are these people not going to become new colonizers that we have fought before, the old ones? These are questions you must ask. So we have a role. DADA has a role. And the only way to do it is to empower ourselves. And let me use this word, empowerment. If you don't have the money, you cannot win even.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You cannot even win the chairmanship of a village dip for cows. You see, it is. You have to go. We have to be empowered. Then go back and we have that problem in Paul. I know you are itching. We have a problem in our country that all our political parties, all one. I'm a member of UPC, which was Obote's party founding father. But let me tell you, they are the poorest. So how will you win election against President Museveni's NRM, which has money? So the best thing is that we must devise a method. And that's what I keep on telling. People might think Besigye is older than Dr. Mastanga. No, Besigye is younger than me. He found me in a struggle. He found me in a struggle. In fact, he was the one who made the rules that are destroying us today. So I've told him, first of all, organize your party, our party. Organize as opposition. Before you go, you don't have even a money. Some of these political parties, democratic institutions, don't have even a machine, a telephone line. How will you win an election with Tinubu, for example, who has millions? You can't. So the diaspora must come back, organize people, tell them that it is not only money that makes you win elections, but the values that you have, the right to go and vote, the right to go and associate, the right to go to assemble, the right to choose. Choice is the most important thing in political science. Anybody will tell you, if you don't have a choice, then you have nothing. If you don't have a choice, even anywhere. That's why local marriages in Mafia clan, the women are covered with with some clothes. Then you choose who is your wife. That's choice. So that is all what I can say. If there's another question, I'm ready. And I'm still here for another 45 minutes.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. Let's, I think I saw, okay, before we get to you, Mr. Martin, I think I saw your hands up anyway. We have a hand up. Mr. Ike Anya, are you there? You have a question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so I'm actually stationed in the US. I happened to get this message over one of the connections I had, so I wanted to attend it. So I listened to what Mr. Ejime talked about, and of course, Dr. DADA. So I have a couple of questions, maybe one attachment to it. The simplest thing is, the simplest question first, before I go into the presentation. Is there a way that Africans in diaspora can actually come together? Because it's almost like every other day, there's one other group that comes up. Every other day, there's one other group. But we're not acting as a unit. We're not acting as a unit. I don't see how this is going to work if we don't find a way to unite all these different interests. Because the reality is that we all have the same problem that we're trying to solve. We have the same problem. So if there's a way we can get together and maybe under DADA, to get everybody together, or some of these units together, so we can focus on making some kind of difference in Africa. That's one question. That's the simplest one. The first one, the other question is, I heard what Ejime said. Since we were born, we've been listening to what is it? Where some of these African organizations, some of these African organizations, okay, we haven't gotten anything from them. There's not much they have succeeded in delivering to us. So I'm more with Dr. DADA on with regard to what we need to do. I don't think democracy is working for us. If you ask me, I don't really think that there's anybody in leadership in Africa that is civilized enough to understand what democracy is about. And therefore, I don't see how we can get from point A to point B, using the same people. So at some point, we have to, the reason why I mentioned the first thing is coming together so that we can actually contribute money and go there and then, select people the kind of people that we want and sponsor them to win an election. Otherwise, we'll just be talking. Everybody talking and then we're not getting nowhere. So my other question is with regard to DADA, because I just heard about this organization. The first thing first is, do you guys have constitution or a set of bylaws that will actually spell out what DADA is for and how it's governed? Because most African organizations belong to why? Because the foundations, their foundations are never very solid. You know, people start something on the whim and they don't do the paperwork and the foundational work that they need to do. And therefore, pretty soon, everybody gets scattered and run away. So I'm just asking, was that a built solidly? So that, like, for instance, the finances of it, the running of it, everything is spelled out as how it's supposed to be done, just like white people would do if they were building a foundation. Those are my concerns. My question.
You have two questions. Okay, I will allow Mr. Ejime to actually take the first question, which is if Africans in diaspora can come in together as one instead of all the different groups, like you suggesting, coming together under DADA. Then I also, from there I'll bring in my president to Mr. Martin to talk about the questions you asked about whether DADA has these bylaws and the rest. So let me just go to Mr. Ejime, your take on what he said. The first question.
Yeah, so coordination is very important. Otherwise, you will be working in silos and then you will not make the impact. Like you have said, there are so many of this type of organization, but they also have, you talked about, I leave the DADA president to mention what they are all about. I think they mentioned it from the beginning. Maybe you didn't join early. I think that is important. So I agree with you that some even die before, some of these organizations die before they even they take off because there is no solid foundation. I think that perhaps as you move on, baby steps, that's what they call it, do something, exist 1 or 2 years, have one particular, you have to carve your niche, have one event or one project that you can handle that will sell you. That is the selling point. That, well, this organization is unlike the others. So what makes you different from the others? That is how you will make your point about your presence. That having been said, you cannot do it alone. There is also the need to connect, to network, and then with like minds, not the ones that are talking about how on Christmas, how they are going to, how many cows they are going to kill, or things that do not add value. So you have to look at the quality of programs, look at the quality of membership, look at the, what they are doing, how impactful. You hear of high impact organizations, high impact. It is from that impact prism that you'll be able to, an organization will sell itself. Otherwise, it will just fizzle out. So I am recommending for DADA to, have the roots, establish itself, and then reach out to shake hands with like-minded organizations. You can now have maybe an annual conference where, thank God for, you don't need to meet physically, but there might be need for that. But thank God for technology, the digital technology. Look at what everybody, we are all in different parts of the world, but we can connect. So this is what it will take. It will take hard work. It will take sacrifice. Leadership is about sacrifice, my brothers and sisters. Otherwise, what we have is that people just think that you cannot even organize your family, your home. At times when I hear people, what is it called, criticize some organizations or their leaders, when you put them there, they are not likely going to make an impact. So we have to take it easy, but be critical. Make sure that those who are running it, let them understand that there will be, frustration. There will be, people will call you names. Some will tell you with the social media, for instance, you will find somewhere where they're already criticizing what DADA is doing when they don't even know what it's all about. But don't pay heed to that. Just concentrate, be focused on what your objective, what your statement, what your mission is all about. By the time you now begin to achieve, by the time you begin to make impact, they say that success has so many parents, so many relations, but failure is the one that is an orphan. So I will say, let them continue and then reach out, find out those organizations that are, have the same or similar objective, and then, network with them to have, I think the more the merrier, provided there is quality in what you are doing, there is impact, and then you know where you are going. That is what I will say about that. I will leave the president of DADA to come in and then explain DADA's constitution if they have one. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ejime. We really do appreciate all your insight, and Dr. Mastanga. I'm sure probably you joined in late. We have given a presentation which we do on every conference that we have at the beginning to let people know what DADA stands for. DADA is still a work in progress. We need people like you to come in and help build it. We need Africans to come together to help build DADA. We need organizations like Mr. Ejime said, of like minds, selfless individuals. You're not going there because you are coming to go to your country to run for election, or you are anticipating to be made a minister or a commissioner. That is not the essence of DADA. The essence of DADA is to awaken the spirit of Africans to their own welfare, to let them know that you cannot continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. As for the Constitution, yes, we have a Constitution that is being put together, but it's not finished. We need input to it. Miabia has done an excellent work in assisting in documenting most of our journey, to our destination where we want to be. Like he has always said, this is not going to be a sprint. It's not. This is something that is going to outlast us and outlast our children. So we're going to do it gradually and do it well. It might start little with a few people, but like our presenters have said, if we do it right, more people will join. And I think we are going to begin with that by acknowledging those African countries who are doing the right thing, either in social media or print media or television. If we have the chance to speak in Al Jazeera, Democracy Now!, call them out and let them know, yes, you are doing the right thing. We encourage you, we commend you. And I think we have our website. You can go in there, take a look at it. And then we encourage everybody to join in. DADA is not my brainchild. Actually, it was initiated by Dr. Cordelia Udo. And I said, okay, well, let's run with it and see what happens after certain observations we've made in Africa. So everybody is invited to input and help build this organization. Nobody is more important than the other. So like Dr. Mastanga said, if we can all put our resources together, maybe, you never know, maybe we can start making an impact in Africa. And we cannot cover the whole of Africa in 1 year, even in 10 years. But if there is a progressive, consistent move towards our goal every year, I think we have done very well. So thank you very much, and I appreciate the question that you asked. My question on this topic that I want to ask Dr. Mastanga and Ejime is this. Now
Mr.
that
President,
we know
I thought you would use the opportunity to acknowledge Dr. Masanga's expression of interest to be a member of DADA.
Yeah, I was going to come to that after my question. Okay. Yes. Mastanga has given us, I know he's doing a lot of work. I don't know much about, I've listened to your space. for about a couple of minutes. And I think you are doing a great job. And I think we need people in DADA with your caliber to come in and direct us, because I'm sure you've been doing this more than myself. This is the first political organization that I'm really leading, which I am still learning. And I need all the help that I can get to make it work. So, and I thank you for taking the time to join this meeting and expressing your interest to be a member of DADA. And we appreciate it greatly. But my question is this regarding Liberia, that has done so well in the past recent years. How do we get to the losers and the winners in their last election, either by way of communication, letters to the past president and a letter to the current president, encouraging them to keep up the good work? And maybe after our discussion with our board, to probably take a print advertisement in Liberia to add, bring DADA to the presence of Liberians, that this is what we are all about. In the process, congratulating the new president and also the old presidents for conceding gracefully when he lost the election, and then hoping that all other Africans can follow suit. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't overstate my question. Dr. Mastanga, I don't know if I can give this question to you, please.
Yes.
Please
go ahead. Go ahead. Now, how do we get there? I developed something called a redemption strategy. Paul must have studied a bit of conflict resolution. I created in 2008, when I was negotiating the Uganda peace process as a chief negotiator and the leader of the rebels who were not allowed to come on the table because of the ICC warrants. So the UN devised a method to get somebody whom they think has been not tainted by any terms of money, being allowed to go to be given a ministry or something, then what they call in African politics to be bought. They found me one of those who has always said opposition does not mean negative opposition all the time. So I developed a strategy called a redemption strategy. And DADA I can give you a paper on that one in a few days. If you give me time, I'll send you a paper. It is picking up very nicely. In Kenya, you saw it, the redemption strategy of people sitting down to talk, not the winner takes all, but there is some recognition. In a redemption strategy, you are talking of healing process. Redemption strategy means healing. There is reparation, there is accountability of what causes conflict between opposition and the government. What is the opposition's demands? What do they want? Why do they, instead of sitting down to say, we are not comfortable, accountability, restitution, reparation, forgiveness, reconciliation, all those 5 are called a redemption strategy. It leads to healing process. Most of the African countries, most of the people in Africa have no healing process. Germany sprang from where it is to today, giving us money, which we use for projects, ladies and gentlemen on the platform, because they had a healing process. It is a crime for you to go in Germany and say, Hitler. If Germany went on mourning about Hitler, they would not be able to be where they are. But they forgot about what Hitler did. They brought their people together. They asked for reconciliation. They said, we don't want to be on international scene anymore. Give us time to go back and reconcile, heal the wounds of the past. They came out as a power in Europe. So a redemption strategy will finish most of the conflicts, will finish what you are looking for. We have to develop a model of redemption. For example, in Zimbabwe, it is beginning to come out clear that even if you go to Angel Gabriel and ask that government and tell them you lost, you did not win elections, they will not surrender the power. So what do? You have members of opposition, 6 of them or 7 of them. Fine. You sit down and talk to the government and form, you might not even form a government of national unity, but have an understanding that Zimbabwe is your country. You don't have another country. Kenya is your country. A redemption strategy has worked in Tanzania. Look at Magufuli, Mama Suluhu Samia and the opposition. They allowed them to come back. Oh, there is no Tanzanian opposition leader who is outside Tanzania today. That's the truth I'm telling you. Because she took a redemption strategy route. Everybody came back. They are making noise there. You can have tear gas here and there if you misbehave. That's normal. But in any democracy, there is a tear gas. Even in Europe, for us, when we go to demonstrate, some of us are in for Israel, the others are in for Hamas. We receive tear gas at times. So a redemption strategy, Mr. Chairman, must be the cornerstone at which you must build this organization. The 5 tenets of a redemption strategy are truth-telling, accountability, restitution, reparation, which leads to healing. Healing. We must heal our thoughts. We must begin by teaching people what it means by sitting down to talk, dialogue, open up, reconciliation. Actually, the 5th one is reconciliation. Then the 6th overall is called a healing process, a redemption strategy. We must have that. If we don't have that, we are not going anywhere. So we must build it in our constitution here. That one of the things, the main aim is to create a redemption strategy where people, you don't have army generals, captains waking up from the barracks coming for you, but there are discussions. Some people don't know why Uganda, for example, despite all these difficulties, President Museveni has about 10 representatives of his highest generals. They're in the parliament. Some people don't know this because some people in opposition can't tell you the truth. I am part of the opposition in Uganda and outside in diaspora. But I said the truth. I give a credit where it is due. He has put the army in the parliament. They have been also elected. They do the elections in the army and send a representative there. So it is very difficult in Uganda to stage anything that the army has not known. Everything you discuss in the parliament, they are also taking part in the debates. So in doing so, you heal so many wounds where you might have someone coming for you. But constitute, I'll give you a paper, I promise 10 days. Ask me, you'll have a paper there about a redemption strategy, which I introduced. It worked very well in northern Uganda. The rebels came back. I brought back 82,000 combatants back to Uganda. And the whole UPDF of Uganda People's Defense Forces, Paul, about a quarter of them are former Konyi rebels. They are in UPDF. You know that very well. They are the ones guarding Mogadishu Sector 1. Very tough. President Museveni trained them, retrained them, took them for training. And they are there. They're working. Reconcile. Peace has returned since 2008 because of that policy.
Okay, sir.
And that is why, that is the only way you can approach. The last thing I want to mention here is that we must stand where we might gain a lot. Look, I took part in the Rwanda against the government of United Kingdom. I was one of the serious technical, #1 technical advisor for United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. That's why you see the evidence that came out very nicely. Mr. Martin came from this mouth here. He closed the door. I hammered my points home, well known, well put, laid the ground that you cannot take Arab refugees, throw them in a place where they are totally no connection with anybody on the ground. At least Kenya, there are still Arabs on the coast. You can take them there, but not the Arab refugees from Syria, Yemen, Iraq, that you want to deport them to Rwanda, and then do what in Rwanda, in the middle of Great Lakes region, when opposed northwest of Rwanda, there is a war. You don't know, you haven't even screened them. These people could be ISIS. I reasoned in the closed door and I won. My argument, the judges were even 45 minutes. They said, no, we give you 2 hours. Please tell us some things we did not know. So look at that. These are things that the organization like DADA can come in and, you pick a consultancy fee, Mr. Martin, for having been sent Mr. Paul Ejime as your consultant, who will be given a consultant fee, and he brings half of it to the DADA. And some of us can do that if you are well structured, as Mr. Ike has said. Ike has said well structured. If you are well structured, some of this little money can come to you, and you build up your base. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, we're about rounding up, but we'll just take 2 consecutive questions from Mr. Chukudi, OJJ, and Mr. Miyabi. So we'll have Mr. Chukudi first, then we'll then have Mr. Miyabi, then respond to the questions, that we'll begin to round up. So please, Mr. Chukudi, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the audience, and I want to use this opportunity to really thank our 2 special guests, Paul Ejime and Mastanga, for making our time to be part of this great vision of DADA and making it Pan-African, creating like a Pan-African movement that will really change the story and the face of Africa. The question I have is a very, very brief one. I know that with the opposition, you already know what has transpired during the Nigerian election. Previously in Nigeria, we've had a lot of things that happened. People are not, they don't come out to vote. People are not really interested in election. But the last one was very unique, and that is why a lot of things really happened. That is part of the birth child of DADA and other organizations. People were motivated, who felt that we had a good leader that is going to lead the country the right direction. But at the end of it, despite the effort we put in by individuals, despite the money put in by individuals, the evil prevailed. The corruption is very deep-seated, and people are not. We notice that our politicians are sycophants, and people go where the money is. And the question I have is people that have been in the forefront of the fight to redeem Nigeria and to create a better nation, and ended up going back the way, the way it is right now. What is actually the hope for us? What do we think that we can do differently if we think that we have actually put in our best to make our nation better? And it doesn't happen? What is the guarantee that even what else can we actually do in the next coming election to bring justice? Because the stats are there. Once the things are the way it is right now, no matter the amount of money you pump into the system, it is likelihood that it's going to be hijacked is almost 90%, because the electoral system was set up well. The electoral system itself was meant to be one of the best reformed when we're using the machine that is meant to remove any form of rigging. But we saw what happened. These things were hijacked from the top, and nothing happened. They took us to the court, like what he said. They allowed the fate of the country to be decided by only 6 very biased judges. But what can we do? Right now, people are helpless. Poverty is used as a weapon to weaken people. Now people are so downcast that they can't even revolt. They cannot go onto the street. So with your experience, I know you have seen a lot that happened in Africa, the ups and downs, and you've seen some of the successful countries. What would you advise Nigerians, especially in the upcoming elections? What can we actually do to effect change? Or do we think that this is an impossible mission? What will be your recommendation? Thank you so much for both of you.
Okay, let's quickly go to Mr. Amir. Mr. Amir, please go ahead with your question.
Okay, my question is very practical, simple, straight to the point, and useful for developing data. And I direct it to the three important people: Paul, Ejime, Mastanga, and the ambassador. You are key, experienced resource persons that are networked across various African people. Mastanga is there in Europe and is Europe, particularly UK, and is well connected in Europe, in Uganda, and of course in East Africa. And of course he has vast knowledge about Africa and probably well connected with a lot of Africans. I also think that Mr. Paul Ejime has some significant level of experience and reach and network to people who have been involved in Pan-African issues, particularly from the perspective of West Africa and all the work he has done there. And of course, the ambassador, I don't know whether he's still here, that you were introduced, also have that. My question is, who are 5 people that you know that are committed to Africa that you can tell us or you can help us access, whether they are in Africa or whether in the diaspora, who we can pull into DADA to help resource the whole issue of organizing, institutionalizing, educating, and strategizing with us moving forward. Very concrete, practical ways of putting you on the spot, if you like, and say, give us, for instance, 5 persons, 15 persons from amongst you, or from between 3 of you, who we can pull together from East Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, in the diaspora, to come and help us move this organization forward. That's how open and desirous we are to have this organization well-structured and well-organized. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, so I don't know, Mr. Mastanga, would you like to answer the first question? The first question says, what was the possibility of our elections not being hijacked by the corrupt elite in power? Like he says, Nigeria had a prospective, beautiful electoral reforms. So both people were hopeful, but the election came and we saw the way the elite in power, they hijacked the whole thing, and so what's the possibility of this not repeating itself again?
I know Paul, because of his employment, he cannot say anything.
Please,
wait.
Go ahead, and then I will
Paul might not say what I want to say. And no, I'm always very open-minded. I was in Abuja. I refused. I told one chairman of the observer team, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, that I would write my independent report, because I went there independently. Nobody even knew I was in that place. They saw I did write my independent report about your elections. 2, I was in the Chatham House. I'm a life member of Chatham House. In fact, when Chatham House executive, I'm one of the associated members of Chatham House. We sit on African division. They wanted to bring these guys, the chairman of the Nigerian election, independent election, something to talk.
Commission,
yes,
yeah.
They brought all these candidates to talk. Do you know what I told these guys? I said, let's not bring them here to shame our organization, because they are going to tell lies and they will do something different. I'm telling you, I was right. When I went back after elections, everybody wanted to buy me a pint of water because that's what I drink. I don't drink alcohol. So I said, I told you, the chairman of Independent Electoral Commission of Nigeria stood up and said he has done everything very well. And the people asked him questions. A whole professor who has read books. When I looked at him reading these things in Abuja, I was embarrassed. I was in the hotel and I told one of these delegations for the Uhuru Kenyatta's, and so I said, tomorrow I'm just going away. I told them there was no election here. There was selection. There was no election. Because you cannot tell me a machine chooses which sends the election for a senator and fails to send this one, which is on the same, level. So this was merely a selection. It was not an election. Ladies and gentlemen on this platform, there was no election in Nigeria up to today. Dr. Mastanga, if Commonwealth was the Commonwealth of the Ghanaian, the Nigerian man, what is his name? The first. Yes.
Yeah.
We would have suspended Nigeria from Commonwealth. Nigeria should not be in the Commonwealth. In fact, I've written a letter to the king. And you know me, I work very hard to reach those areas. And I've worked 39 years to be recognized. I am tackling the Secretary General of the Commonwealth very badly. And I'm investigating some cases where he must have, she seemed to have taken cash and kept quiet on human rights abuses in the Commonwealth. In the new, that is, have you seen the way, Mr. President, the way I act, I work? I'm not, you don't trample on me on international relations, on international law. I will finish you. I finished Ocampo on ICC, flat down. I finished sanctions of Zimbabwe. It's me who filed that application in the European Court of Justice and the human rights in Brussels. Then Baroness Baroness Catherine Ashton, when I gave her the copy, she called the European Council of Ministers and said, please, this man is going to get money from us. We have erred. They removed the sanctions. So for me, I am still investigating as to why, one, Nigeria is still in the Commonwealth. It should not be there. It should actually be suspended. We suspended Abacha. You remember? When Abacha was killing people, we suspended them. As we speak now, Nigeria is not a country. It's a share of difficulties. Everybody is taking a share out of this country. Boko Haram killing people in the north, southeast people are being butchered, gangsters raping people, gunmen doing what? What is this? Commonwealth should have suspended. Even the 5 judges should not practice anywhere in the Commonwealth. And those ones, I'm waiting for one of them to ever come to anywhere near Chatham House. I will use a red mark to mark their out of the Chatham House. Because such judges should not come to speak near intellectuals like Dr. Mastanga. Don't come near me. with such stupidity that you have already written a judgment and you just come to tell people that this is what we have. You can't defeat an election petition on technicality only. There is always substance. What are the recommendations? What did we learn about Nigerian elections? Zero. What can we correct about elections in Nigeria? Zero. They didn't give recommendations. At least the Kenyan Supreme Court gave recommendations on what to do. But these judges in the country called Nigeria did not even tell us whether we should go to the toilet or not. But they told us to keep not going to the toilet. This is a fixed route. That is where conflicts arise. And if I were President Tinubu, I would work very fast to make sure that he makes good of what he wants to do to change that country. Because that's one of the countries in the West African enclave that I'm more worried about. It is volatile. Paul, I don't know how you sit in ECOWAS and allow such stupidity to go on. But me, I tell my friends, I don't care if you hate me. Are you the one who manufactures oxygen? I'll go away and look for oxygen somewhere else. So DADA can bring pressure. There were no elections in this place. Was no election at all. 94 million people vote registered. You tell me 68 million, surely just sat, they didn't even come. So it's a country with 220 million people in Africa. We look up to it with a very good market where Uganda can give you food. Some people sleep hungry when Uganda's food, we throw it. Uganda is the only country that does not import food. We throw some of the food, honestly. And there are some Africans sleeping hungry, yet we could work together and deliver food to such people. So for me, on the question of elections in Nigeria, I disagreed and I disagree. Even if you bring Angel Gabriel today here, I will tell Angel Gabriel, kill me, take me to court to make judgment, but there was no election in Nigeria. It was a selection, and that is my point.
Okay, let's hear your commentary, Mr. Ejime. Please go ahead. Your commentary, and also
Dr. Berry.
Sorry. I want you to talk your commentary on this, and also your input on what the second speaker said on 5 people you know that can really be committed in Africa to help DADA. So your commentary first, then the other.
Okay, let me start by acknowledging a brother and fellow Pan-Africanist, Desmond Ojiako. My brother, welcome. I mean, he's just sitting in there, welcome. He worked with, international organizations, and then he just taking in everything with the UN. So he's also listening there. By the way, Ambassador Adjusemo had excused himself. If you read the chat, he had, he said he left and said he will be back. So what I will this is like what is it called? An ambush that you are doing now. For us to give you names of people that we cannot, we don't even know whether they will accept or not. So let us take it gradually. We have to reach out to these people and ask them on their opinion. Then when they now give their consent, then we can, that is my response on that. And so be rest assured that if DADA, if you let your reputation precede you, if you let your work attract people for you, you will get more than enough. And then rest assured. You had mentioned about how you can get to Liberia. I had given down one name, and Ambassador Adjusemo, as you know, is probably still there working. He's still in Liberia. He retired from ECOWAS, but they still need him to assist them. And that is why so these are the kind of people that you will have to reach out. And then you don't want to commission me to become your recruitment officer through the back door. It doesn't work that way. Martin is laughing. So that is one area. And then I agree with my brother. I worked at WHO with UN system, worked with ECOWAS. I have retired in ECOWAS, but occasionally I come out to do pro bono, do analysis, talk about ECOWAS the way that people know, not many people can talk about it. That's why today, and I write, some of them don't like what I say, but I say it because I know I went to war. I could have died. I know things that many of them, they are just there collecting. Maybe they are not as knowledgeable in ECOWAS. The foundation, those how the person will come inside ECOWAS, Professor Adedeji of Nigeria, and Edem, was it Edem Kojo also, when Gawan and the Togolese Yadema asked them to set up ECOWAS. These people they don't know the history. They don't know how ECOWAS was set up or the objective. So that is why I excuse them. I tell them, listen, you can go ahead and enjoy the fruit of other people, but you have missed the dream of the founding fathers. I say as much, my brother Mastanga. So I'm not afraid to tell the truth to power or to anybody. They hate me for that, but all the analysis I do, they come to me because I say it as it is, that just like yourself. Now, our brother has asked for solution, and that is where I want us to go. Yes, the election in Nigeria was bad, but we should not throw the baby with the bathwater. Because if you remember where Nigeria is coming from, this is a country that I told you the role it played in having a Liberia today that we are even praising, or Sierra Leone. Without Nigeria, and it's not, without sense of responsibility, these countries, only God knows where they will be. And then you know about South Africa, you know about Zimbabwe, you know about Namibia, you know about all the other places. So we cannot, because of this, Nigeria is passing through a very difficult time, and it will pass. And how do we get out of it? That is it. That is the what we will suggest to DADA and how they can approach it. Now, it is not just the leadership that is the problem. There has to be. You talked about your restoration. Is it restoration or restitution? Rescue, whatever.
Redemption.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you know that Liberia, they had a committee set up, commission of about like what they had in South Africa. Gambia also had it after their own Yaya Jammeh showed them pepper for 22 years. But what has happened there? It was just all on paper. There is no, they lack the political will to do it. So what will happen is that citizens on their own will have to wake up. There has to be a reorientation. The attitude everybody has, both the leaders and the led, is giving rise to what is happening. The typical African now is looking for bread, how to survive. They have weaponized poverty. That I think the Kenyan lawyer, Lumumba, said that the tragedy of Africa is that those who have ideas do not have the money. But those who have money, unfortunately, do not have ideas about how to run the government. Now, they have captured many states, those who with deep pockets. But what they are doing is not sustainable. But how can it happen that each time such a thing happens, you don't find the mass of, in Burkina Faso? It took what you call the people power to remove Campari. And this is not far away. It was 2014 that the Burkinabes came out in their millions on the streets. And then a military man, the man who killed his friend, Sankara, in 1987, was running the whole show for how many years? But when his cup was full, he ran away. He's living in exile now. True or false, Mr. Mastanga? So the citizens will have to ask for, demand accountability of those, no matter how. We cannot consign Nigeria. Even the Commonwealth we are talking about that we should expel Nigeria. What is the position of the Commonwealth? Some of them members are part of the problem that Nigeria has, because they want a leader that will that will serve them, a leader that is listening to them. They want somebody they can control. And if that is the case, when you are talking about anybody suspending or doing, and after the suspension, what happens? So it is up to us, it is up to the countries, individual countries and their citizens to go back and understand that this 5,000, 10,000 naira, this money they give them, it is their money that these people have stolen. If somebody steals your money and gives you part of it, you cannot be grateful for that. In fact, you can take the money and still do what you have to do. Don't vote them. But we haven't reached that stage of letting our people know that no matter the amount they give you, it will not, equate you voting for somebody, go to your conscience and voting for somebody who can deliver. Today, it is money ruling. But I can assure you that if the citizens are sensitized to know that it is up to them to take power from these people who have hijacked power, they can do it. And the civil society organizations, DADA and others, you have a job to do there, to go and sensitize, work with the citizens to let them know their rights, to let them understand that it will pay them giving you 1 million now and then, or voting for somebody who will provide you with the opportunity to make 10 times that amount. That is the question. You cannot now begin to eat, because they are eating their future by collecting money, selling their votes to people that will not deliver. So that is where I support your strategy, but it has to work with a reorientation of the mindset of everybody, the common, if there is anything called, of the masses, to know that they have a role to play. Power belongs to them. They have to take power back from these people who have hijacked it. It is not sustainable. It will not continue. Something has to give. So instead of total condemnation, saying, expecting somebody else to come and do it outside Nigeria. Remember, of course, other countries supported the anti-apartheid movement. But remember that South Africans were dying on the streets. They continued, and ANC continued the fight inside. People like Mandela, they went to prison. So it has to start from inside. Let that fire start burning inside. Let people rise and claim their rights. And then they can only do so if they understand, political, it's not education. Well, you may call it political education or whatever, voter education or voter whatever, sensitizing them to their rights, their political rights. And then also telling them that they have it goes with responsibility. You cannot also refuse to obey the law Okay, cheat, because everybody is claiming that is the leader, but the common people are also doing exactly almost what the people are doing, the same things that their leaders are doing. But I agree with you that we need the leadership, the kind of leadership that will change the country. But the people demand that kind of accountability.
Is the time for us to do the thank you? No?
Yes, I think that's the next item on the agenda. Kevin,
please. Yeah, I think we spent so much time on this meeting. Please, I think we are kind of rounding up now. You want to say something?
Yes. Please, just because my name was mentioned, I want to use this opportunity to thank all of you, and especially when I saw Paul Ejime's name in this as the guest speaker, so I got very interested and wanted to be part of this. Although this has been in my mind for many, many years. My name is Desmond Ojako. As he tried to introduce me, let me now complete the introduction. I thank him. I also thank Martin Ebe for being at the helm of these things. I also thank Mastanga. I worked for Nigeria as a diplomat. I worked for Africa as a diplomat. And that gives me the opportunity to say I saw the OAU and I helped to build the African Union, which is now the organization there. For 32 years of my life, I spent it in Ethiopia, Kenya, and parts of Africa. I traveled to over 40 countries of 55 African countries, trying to help build the peace. And today we see where we are. It's so deplorable, it's so sad that what we tried to achieve and what we really achieved, because when I went into the organization, there were over 6 wars and military dictatorships everywhere. By the time I left it, we had only Somalia that was there lingering, and that is lingering till today. That tells you how Africa is going up and down. There are reasons to this. For those of you who started this, those I mentioned their names now, and those I haven't mentioned their name, I thank all of you for thinking about this. Together we can redeem Africa. Together we can redeem every country in Africa, be it Nigeria, be it Uganda, where somebody, of course, was able to, Paul Ejime was able to tell us how we liberated Liberia, how we liberated Sierra Leone, the role we played in South Africa, and so many other countries. I did a book called Communication and African Integration, the Foundation for United Africa. I'm a Pan-Africanist, as he described me, that's true. And because of that, I am for this DADA. I will join. Somebody may need to take me on and brief me. I will join and do my little best. At least I give my little experience from running these errands. I was a civil servant. I was not a politician. No politician came to my aid when I was there. When they politicized the place, I know what I did. And God be with us all. I thank you. Further comments come when we have re-established links and gotten this going. This is an organization that is worth it. This is the only organization that can redeem Africa, no other. Then countries, if we have branches in every country of Africa, we can tell a government that is elected illegally that we don't want you, your people didn't elect you. We are proof. And if all African countries say, start fighting from their countries against that person or that party, believe me, they are going to go nowhere. Believe me, they are not going to go anywhere. And that is why I think this is the right modus operandi. Removing them from Commonwealth, they don't care. They don't care because they have no shame. If I were any of these people doing this thing, I will, after it all, I will resign. After resigning, I tell the world why I resign. And my name will go down in history as an honorable man, as a man of integrity. This is what is lacking in Africa. In the book I did, which I mentioned, what did I find out? I found out that Africa's problem is because of his leadership, no more, no less. I wrote it while serving the continent. I managed to speak for the OAU as a spokesperson. I spoke for Africa, the AU as the founding spokesperson in that organization. So we have seen a lot of things happen. Of course, I'm retired. Am I in Africa? How can you be where nobody wants to hear about justice, about truth, about integrity? No, you have to find a place to put your head. And then from there, you start putting advice across and see whether there'll be good people who will take it and run with it. So I thank you very much. This is all I can say. Just recognizing all the names I know, the people I worked with, because all these people now leading this, I came across them in the course of my work, and I'm happy they are still alive, they're not dead. And this cannot happen in our own time of being elder statesmen in our own rights. None of us, I'm sure, is a politician except my brother, Mastanga, who combined politics with great journalism. I thank him for all his remarks. All those things he said, you can imagine if it is repeated everywhere in Africa. What happens? That's the education we are talking about. A leader that is not recognized should sit down and sit down and sit down and let Africa survive. We are doing this for our children, not for ourselves. Each and every one of us who has done his own work and put down the pen or put down the computer.
Our time is fast spent, sir.
Thank you, sir. I think I should stop here since I didn't prepare a speech to make, and I'm not one of those invited to make a presentation.
We will invite you some other time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Martin, the recruitment
I'm
continues.
take over now, guys. That's
okay,
my,
yes,
that's
Dr. Cornelia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DADA guest speakers, Dr. Paul Ejime. My name is Dr. Cordelia Udo. I'm an ophthalmologist in training here in Pennsylvania. I thank you, Dr. Paul Ejime and Dr. David Mastanga for being our guest speaker today at Diaspora Contribution to Democratic Leadership and Institution in Africa, a focus on Liberia. Your presentations were informative, engaging, and thought-provoking. Dr. Ejime, you stated that information and skills not shared is a waste. You're right. That outside world is rushing to Africa for something very important while Africans are running out. Correct. Democracy imported from outside cannot work in Africa. Yes, we are seeing it. Okay, that Africa has unique problems. You stated them all: tribalism, selfishness, minority settlers, dominance, multidimensional poverty, and that our history are not even being shared. You cannot go forward successfully without knowing your past. And that I also think I had fairness and justice. And reconciliation came in from Dr. Mastanga. So Mr. Mastanga advised that we don't go to non-Africans for funding, or DADA loses credibility among Africans. That's quite interesting. So guys, I guess we forget those Soros and the rest of them. And that, I thank you, Dr. Mastanga. You're joining DADA. Your mind, man, I've listened so much. You're a fighter, and that's really who we need. You are fearless. We welcome you, and we hope that that you lead us somehow in in a way that we can succeed in our missions. But you know, history, reconciliation, there's so much lacking in Nigeria in particular. While other countries are trying to do theirs, maybe it's written in the paper and not being executed. But I don't think even Nigeria has written theirs. And we hope that this is our beginning, and that we'll eventually get to our destination by God's grace. Thank you all.
Good, Dr. Cordelia. Kevin, I think we're about to wrap up with Cheta's final.
Madam Chete, please, can you give us your vote of thanks as we round up the meeting, please? Madam Chete. Madam Chete, are you there?
You're muted. You're muted,
Chete. Oh, okay, yes. Can you hear me now? Can you see me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Cheta Zanliam. I'm a cardiologist at Cleveland, Ohio, USA, and I'm a board of trustee at DADA. I'll be very quick, really, because Dr. Cordelia has really summarized everything. A lot of gratitude. We're very, very heartfelt gratitude to our speakers today, Dr. Ejime, Mr. Ejime, Dr. Mastanga, and also is the Ambassador Ojako, or sorry, I don't know what your title is, but
yes, I don't go by titles. Thank you very much. I recognize whatever you call me.
Okay, yes, you know, as Mabie, Mr. Mabie earlier talked about DADA and gave the outline and organization earlier. He's with I also want to extend my gratitude to him. He's been propelling this vision, and also Mr. Martin as leading on the vision, and Dr. Cordelia, who came up with the idea that needs to be some kind of conglomeration of Nigerians, and I mean not even just Nigerians, Africans in diaspora, and Mabie took it from there to establish and build on what is DADA's vision. But as we say in different dialects in Africa, you know, there's so much how far young people, I say young in parentheses, can go if we don't have any solid structure. In this case, the solid structure is building on what giants have done in the past. And by giants, I mean the people we've had today on our panel. You've had years of work in different circumstances, even worse than it is today, you know, war situation, bringing together negotiations. You have wealth of experience. So we're really humbled because it's by your wisdom of what you've done in the past that you're able to help us mold and build DADA into what should be an effective organization. There's you can always have things on paper, but at the end of the day, what really matters is how much you're able to do on the field. And how much you're able to do on the field is, we're not gonna be, well, I say naive and proud to think that we have all the answers. A lot, we're gonna have to rely on what people have done in the past, people like you, and you'll be sharing your experience. So I want to use the opportunity to say, please bear with us. We're gonna really rely heavily on your wisdom. Dr. Mastanga has, thank you so much for coming on board. And Mr. Ejime, you're gonna hear from us because those names Mr. Abie had asked you for, we're gonna come and ask you.
Well, one of them, you got one on the chip. Dr. Jacob came, Desmond came because he thought my name was there.
Okay. All right, so you have 4 more to give us, right?
Okay.
Okay, so thank you so much. I just want to say that please, we need a lot of help because the problems are complex, the solutions are complex, but we need a lot of guidance. So we don't try to tackle everything all at once and then fizzle out like a lot of groups, well-meaning groups have. So please, thank you so much for granting us the audience today, and thank you everybody for being patient. And please join us. Kevin has dropped a lot of information on the chats. Please join us and work with us to get it successful for the benefit of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheta. Thank you very much. I think, Kevin, we are rounding up. This, like I said, this is a continuous process. Mia Bia has always stressed that this is not a sprint. We're just going to do a little bit of a marathon to get to where we are going.
I also want to say, if Mr. Mastanga, if you also have 5 names to give to us to also brought into the establishment, please, we would love to have those names, please. As
yeah,
also so welcome.
He's one of us now, Kevin. Yeah, he's already a DADA member, so we're going to be all working together to get more members, you know, and building on their strength, like Cheta said. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You are all wonderful today. We hope that you'll be able to join us next time. This is going to be a bi-weekly conference, and most of the information we gather today will be discussed in our BOT meeting in a fortnight. Thanks again, and good night to everyone. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So please also go after Ambassador Ajishemo.
Yes,
That's
I
number
already
2.
have it. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Good evening and good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Good night.
Okay.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you all. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Dr. Mastanga. Thank you.
Thanks.